Most of the time, when people think about the origins of economic thought, they immediately jump to names like Adam Smith, Karl Marx, or perhaps Aristotle if they remember their school lessons. Western history books usually begin the story there, but this version of history hides a quieter and far older truth. Nearly 1,000 years ago, long before capitalism, stock markets, or central banks existed, a Muslim scholar was already warning societies about the dangers of money without morals. He argued that when wealth loses its ethical foundation, civilizations do not collapse overnight, they rot slowly from the inside. Judging by the financial crises, inequality, and institutional distrust of our modern world, it seems this medieval thinker understood human behavior far better than we like to admit. Welcome to the Financial Historian, where money, power, and history collide, and where nothing is ever as simple as it first appears. To understand Al-Ghazali, one of the greatest thinkers of the Islamic Golden Age, we need to step back into a world that feels both distant and strangely familiar. It is around the year 1100 CE. Europe is fragmented, economically weak, and still recovering from the early Middle Ages. Meanwhile, the Islamic world stretches across vast territories, from Muslim Spain in the west to Persia and Central Asia in the east. Its cities are large, wealthy, and sophisticated. Baghdad, Damascus, Cairo, and Cordoba are global centers of learning, trade, and finance.
Caravans move constantly along trade routes, carrying silk, spices, textiles, gold, and silver. Markets are crowded and vibrant. Scholars debate philosophy, law, medicine, astronomy, and economics. Wealth is flowing faster than ever before, and with it comes a new challenge: how to manage prosperity without losing moral direction. It is within this environment that Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali emerges, a thinker who refuses to accept wealth as automatically good or progress as automatically healthy. Born in 1058 in Persia, Al-Ghazali rose rapidly through the intellectual ranks. By his mid-30s, he held one of the most prestigious teaching positions in the Islamic world. Yet what truly defined him was not his status or titles, but his deep discomfort with what he observed around him. He saw societies becoming richer, markets expanding, and opportunities multiplying. Yet people seemed more anxious, more greedy, and more disconnected from meaning. Outward success masked inward decay. Al-Ghazali asked a dangerous question, one few thinkers dared to confront. What happens when a civilization becomes wealthy faster than it becomes wise? To answer this, he turned his attention not only to religion or philosophy, but to money itself.
This is where Al-Ghazali surprises many modern audiences. He was not merely a theologian speaking in abstract moral terms. He was one of the earliest thinkers to analyze money as a system that shapes human behavior. Where later economists would focus on numbers, equations, and efficiency, Al-Ghazali focused on psychology, ethics, and trust. He understood that money does not just move goods, it moves values. At the core of his thinking was a simple idea: money is a tool, not a goal. It exists to facilitate exchange, cooperation, and productivity. Al-Ghazali famously compared money to a mirror. A mirror has no value on its own. Its worth comes from what it reflects. In the same way, money has no inherent value beyond what it allows people to create, trade, and support. When money itself becomes the object of obsession, it stops serving society and starts corrupting it. From this foundation came one of his most powerful insights: hoarded money is dead money. Wealth locked away in chests, buried underground, or hidden from circulation does not benefit society. It does not pay workers, fund trade, or support families. Instead, it restricts economic flow. Al-Ghazali described hoarding as freezing the bloodstream of society. When money stops moving, economic life weakens, inequality grows, and resentment spreads.
His argument was not emotional or simplistic. It was systemic. When the wealthy hoard money, scarcity is created artificially. Resources still exist, but access disappears. Prices distort, markets malfunction, and ordinary people suffer. The problem is not a lack of wealth, it is a lack of circulation.
Closely connected to this was Al-Ghazali's condemnation of speculation. He believed speculation destroyed trust, which he saw as the foundation of all markets. Merchants who manipulated prices, created artificial shortages, or profited from crises were, in his view, engaging in moral corruption. Profit without contribution was not intelligence, it was exploitation. Once such behavior becomes normalized, trust collapses and markets follow soon after. What makes his writing so striking is how modern it sounds. His critiques echo today's debates about financial bubbles, housing crises, insider trading, and crisis profiteering. Yet Al-Ghazali was writing these ideas nearly 900 years ago. Importantly, he was not against trade or profit. He believed markets were natural and necessary. He believed wealth could be honorable when earned honestly. His criticism was aimed at deception, false weights, hidden defects, manipulated information, and dishonest contracts. In his view, markets function only when participants trust one another. Once trust disappears, no amount of regulation or force can save the economy.
In this sense, Al-Ghazali anticipated ideas that modern economists now describe with technical language, such as information asymmetry and moral hazard. He reached these conclusions not through mathematical models, but by observing human behavior. Another key element of his thought was the dignity of labor. Al-Ghazali believed work had intrinsic value, while unearned wealth carried spiritual and social danger. Money earned through effort strengthened both individuals and communities. Money gained through manipulation weakened them. Societies thrive when people contribute more than they extract, and they decay when exploitation becomes the dominant strategy. Al-Ghazali also offered one of the earliest critiques of state interference in currency. Medieval rulers often diluted gold and silver coins to stretch their budgets, an early form of inflation. Al-Ghazali condemned this practice outright. To him, debasing currency was theft. It silently punished ordinary people, especially the poor, and eroded trust in the entire economic system. He believed governments had a role in protecting fair markets, but not in manipulating money for short-term political gain. Unjust rulers, he warned, destroy prosperity faster than any external enemy. When leaders cheat, corruption spreads downward. Merchants feel justified in cheating customers, institutions lose credibility, and society enters a cycle of distrust.
His conclusion was simple but devastating. A society can survive poverty, but it cannot survive corruption. Economic collapse is rarely about running out of resources. It is about the breakdown of trust, the invisible force holding contracts, currencies, and institutions together. History has proven him right again and again. When people lose faith in their money, they abandon it. From medieval coinage crises to modern hyperinflation in places like Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, and Venezuela, the pattern remains the same. Money is ultimately a belief system. Once belief collapses, so does the economy. Al-Ghazali understood something timeless about human nature. People hoard out of fear. They speculate out of greed. They justify unethical behavior when it becomes widespread. And when exploitation feels normal, collapse is already underway. This is why he believed economic reform without moral reform is impossible. His message matters deeply in the modern world. We live in an era of extreme inequality, speculative excess, rising debt, and declining trust in institutions. Technology has changed, markets have accelerated, but human behavior remains the same. Al-Ghazali's warning echoes clearly across centuries. When money becomes detached from morality, no system can survive for long. Economies do not collapse because numbers stop working. They collapse because people stop trusting each other. They collapse when incentives reward exploitation instead of contribution. Al-Ghazali was not preaching religion, he was diagnosing reality. Money, he believed, is not a mechanical object, it is a moral ecosystem,
And when that ecosystem breaks, the financial system follows. Understanding this is not just history, it is protection. Because history does not repeat exactly, but if we fail to understand it, it will crush us all the same.